America's Card Room is the largest U.S.-facing poker site. For the latest deposit bonus, click the link in the description. And to watch poker live and grow your game, check out twitch.tv/PokerPastor and subscribe to this channel. What's up, everybody? PokerPastor here, reviewing a hand history from October. Now, today I am playing the $1 Million Sunday on ACR and the Carbon Big Ticket. But before that, I had a couple hours to kill, and I thought I would go back to a Carbon Big Ticket I played back in October, quite a while ago. I mean, it was only 3 months ago, but I have changed and evolved my game a lot. I've had a lot of coaching sessions between now and then, so I thought it would be interesting to go back and just see what I could find. And I haven't reviewed these hands in depth. I went through quickly and just pulled key hands where I won or lost decent amounts of chips. Just kind of skimmed through quick. Didn't really look at any of the streets. So for the most part, I'm looking at this blind, and it'll be interesting to see. I'm sure there's going to be some good things, some bad things, some things I did back then that maybe I disagree with now. We got about 16 or 17 key hands. So let's take a look at this. So this is the Carbon 162. And first hand here, we get raised from the button from a pretty aggressive player. We don't have a lot of stats on him. 32, 29, 12 over 79 hands. It's enough to know that he's really aggressive. He's also, like we can see, 69, 62, 20 from the small blind, 40, 40 from the cutoff, 33, 33 from the button. So definitely extra aggressive on this side of the table here. So he raises us. I don't mind flatting here in the big blind. I guess some of this depends on your big blind strategy. I think early stages I probably would just call here, but there's definitely some spots where I would 3-bet here with ace 10. But being that this is still the 5100 level, I'm okay with a flap. We do flop top pair, top kicker. It goes check, check. We lead out, which I'm fine with. We get called. The river's a 5. I like that we're not scared to bet again. The sizing is probably a little strong. I mean, we're wanting to get called. I mean, there are some 10s that could call us, right? But, like, we're really hoping to get called by, like, 6s, 8s, 9s at this point. I think getting called by ace high is probably unrealistic. I think this is a thinner place for value. So I would probably bet closer to like 400 now, I think, given the situation here. And we don't really have any river stats or bet stats for him with this sample size. So this might be a little adventurous. But as played, we do take it down. So next hand, we're at 75, 150 now. Raised from early position with 10-9 suited. This is a little looser than probably I would do now. I've tightened up a little bit under the gun +1. We do have one person sitting out, so this is technically more like under the gun +2. We get called on the button, small blind, and the big blind. Now, heads up. This is a flop in position that I would see bet. Out of position, I would check. We do have backdoor flush equity. We have backdoor straight equity. Given that we're four-handed, this is definitely a check for me, and we are out of position to one turn here. So we do check. Checks around. We turn gin, basically, like pretty much the best turn card you could hope for, because now we're open-ended straight. We've got the backdoor flush draw. And Otis here bets out a little over, like about 2/3 pot. He's 25, 14, 1. We're getting 2.89 to 1. Assuming that all our outs are live, we're looking at, 15 outs. This is, with implied odds, this is definitely a call. I think you could contemplate check raising here. Probe total isn't very high, so we do think that he has something. But let's say he's doing this with a dry jack. Like, we raise here. Like, it's a really scary raise. Now, if he's a better thinking player, like he can definitely understand that we're going to raise him with a varying range of, like, we could raise him with flush draws with overs. We could raise him with some sort of combo draw like we have. But, like, again, put yourself out of position in the small blind. If you make a bet here with like Queen Jack, right, and you get raised here, like sets are scary, 2-pair combos are scary. Like Jack 8 could definitely check the flop and then check raise the turn. Like to the average player, like this is kind of a scary board, and like you just don't feel that good with your top pair, right? Now we don't know. I mean, this 3-bet's only 1%, which is pretty low for a tourney reg. I'm just trying to see if there's any other outliers in here that would kind of lead him in one direction or the other. He folds the river bets pretty high percentage of the time, and his call and bet river's pretty low. So he's a pretty honest player. So I do think like I think a check raise here is probably the best play. It is a little bit trickier with a guy in the big blind as well, or sorry, on the button as well. This is an easier check raise heads up, but even with him in here, like maybe this check raise is even better because like this guy bets we check raise. Like, is he gonna call here with just a flush draw? Like we could maybe potentially get him to fold a better flush draw if he had like king queen of hearts maybe. He's gonna call here, but he's gonna fold to a raise. So I think I like the check raise play best here. As played though, we call, we brick the river, and he takes down the bet there. Still at the 75-150 level. This is a place I'm definitely 3-betting now. I'm pretty sure I flat here, yeah. I mean, again, we've got a really aggressive player opening from early position. Even with the limited hand sample size, at this point we had 91 hands on him. He's 29% from EP over 14 hands. It's just too aggressive. We don't have much 3-bet fold stats, so we don't know where it's at, but this hand plays really well post-flop. We get to isolate against a weaker player that's playing too many hands, and we could easily be ahead of his range even on top of that. But we flat. Big blind comes in. We flop top pair and open-ended. Do we have any C-bet stats on this guy? 40%. So he checks. We go ahead and lead out. I'm fine with that. We can definitely get called by weaker hands. So I don't think we want to check behind here. So pretty straightforward. I think the one thing I would change here is I would definitely probably 3-bet pre-flop. Not only to isolate the weaker player, but also to build a bigger pot in position against a guy that's just playing way too many hands that we want to punish. So now we're at the 150-300 level here. Sitting on 40 bigs still. We open with 5s. Now I'm generally opening 6s or better from the first two positions here. So this is a little bit looser than I would open. But it folds around. We get called in the big blind by a short stack. We do flop bottom set. And we make a C-bet. Now, we don't have any stats on this guy to go on. This is kind of a dry board. Like, the one thing I don't like about this, like, I think if I'm going to C-bet here, I want to C-bet smaller, like maybe like 560. Reason being, like, there shouldn't be a ton of aces in his range. Aces are, generally a lot of aces are going to play back at us. They're going to re-raise. We could get some weaker aces in here, but like we don't put them really on like ace king here or like ace queen. And at the same time, like we want all of his 10s to call, right? And when we bet half pot here, like we're kind of like we're basically repping an ace. So like we should kill off a lot of action here, right? So I think I'm betting like 520, maybe like 1/3 pot here on this drive of board. And that not only is that going to keep a 10 in, it's going to keep weak aces in. And like maybe we get some like queen jack calls, king queen, king jack. We get some of those gut shot calls to maybe come along for a straight as well. He does call though. Turns a brick. And the same thing, we go half pot. Now if we went cheaper the first go around and then went half pot, I'd be fine with it. Obviously, since we went half pot the first hand and he called, we feel like he's got something. So we call, and then the river comes and we just bomb it. And I'm fine with the river bomb. I mean, he shouldn't be calling very many hands for half his stack, flop and turn. and then fold to the river. So we don't get to see, of course, what he had, but I think I should bet size a little bit smaller on the flop, and then turn river as played is fine. So pick up a nice little pot there. Here we're at the 200, 400 level now. We've got queens, and we're facing a min raise, and then a 4x 3-bet from our really loose player. Now, this person is a 3-bet of 8%, 11% from middle position. We're definitely way ahead of this person's range. The original opener story is a little bit different. 3% from early position, right? And it's only 30 hand sample size, 137 hands overall. So it is small. We do need to factor that in. But we can't ignore it, right? Like, we got to feel like there's some strength here. So it's a really weird dynamic because we want to punish this guy, right? This is the quintessential, like, exploiting versus being exploited. Like, we want to exploit this guy, but by exploiting this guy, we put ourselves at risk of being exploited by this person. Now, we do have 5 hands of 3-bet sample size. Fold to 3-bet, 1 out of 5. Call to 3-bet, 2 out of 5. 4-bets, 2 out of 4. So it's small enough that we really can't, like, read too much into it. So I don't know. This is a tough spot. Like, I actually think flatting here would not be bad. I guess the question is, when we flatten this guy's shoves, are we ever folding to him? Like, are we ever really folding queens here? Like, if we're never folding queens here, let's see, we're 40 big blinds deep. Yeah, I don't know. Even with this guy's stats, I'm not sure I'm ever folding queens here to this guy, because, like, I think this is a spot where we just, you know, we should go to, like, 8K just to make sure we price this guy in. And if this guy comes over the top, he comes over the top. We actually bomb it, which, if this guy wasn't in the hand, I love bombing it because we know that he's going to call off light. And so maybe this isn't horrible to bomb it anyway. Maybe we're confident that this guy's going to call regardless. If we're never folding to this guy if he comes over the top of us, like, let's say we fly here for 3K, he jams and we're always calling, then maybe this is the best because it does look the fishiest. We know this guy calls really light, but it's close. This is a really awkward spot, right? This is where I wish I had, like, 3 times the amount of hands on these people. Like, when this guy's got 130 hands and we see his stats as loose as they are, we can feel pretty safe he's loose aggressive. This is a different story, though. Like, this could be variance. 30 hands is not enough to really know, or it could be a telltale sign. The fact that it contrasts so starkly from every other street leads me to believe that this is a little bit more legit, but it's hard to say. So we bomb. We get called. We run out pure. He actually had ace-king suited. So in this particular situation, I think if we flat, he's coming over the top anyway. But this is kind of a good example of, like, how you try to exploit somebody, you can get exploited. And by bombing, we didn't get a call from this guy. So, maybe that 6 to 7 to 8K 4-bet would have been a more optimal way. Obviously, we don't love flipping here for an 80 big blind pot, but queens are really, really strong. They're not going to flip very often. That's the other thing. Like, sometimes we get queens all in against ace-king, and we're like, we got on a flip. But, like, ace-king is literally the only hand you can flip with, right? I always tell people it's very different getting queens in a flip than it is getting ace-king in a flip, because it's very easy to get ace-king in a flip. It's very, very hard to get queens in a flip. So when you get queens in a flip, it kind of sucks to play queens for a flip, but it's not a common occurrence. Like, it's not going to happen that often. He would very well possibly call over jacks, 10s, maybe 9s. So there's definitely some hands that you're going to beat. And if you get a really loose player, who knows? Maybe he gets frisky with ace queen or ace jack suited. So. And he's, of course, got a whole chunk of his range that he's just going to fold there. So, we flip for 80 bigs, but that's more unlucky and variance than anything. right, so here we got pocket nines. I'm okay with flatting this, I guess, from middle position. Like, I think eights I'm definitely need to, like, I don't want to set mine with eights. I'm 3-betting here with eights if I'm playing it. Nines, you start to get some value beyond, just set mining, because this guy's only got 20. I guess he's 30 bigs to start the hand. But this is like close. This is kind of on the verge of where, like, all right, we don't really want to be set mining. So we flop second pair with a gutter. He leads for half pot. Again, no stats on this guy whatsoever. We flat. I don't mind it. I mean, raising isn't really going to get better to fold. About the only hand you're hoping to get to fold with a raise is maybe tens. I don't think you're going to get many jacks to fold. At least not any jacks that are in his range. Turns to 2. And he just bombs for 14K into 8K. Yeah, like I mean, there's no way we're calling here, but if we have more stats on him, this would be an interesting spot to consider. Like, because when you get to know more about the player, you get a better idea of, like, what kind of player type would do this. Like, some player types, this is going to be like, I had 7-8, I got 2 pair, I've got a good hand, and I'm scared of the river. There's a flush draw, there's straight draws, so I'm just going to rip it. Other players, this could be like, hey, I raised with ace, king of clubs, I c-bet the flop, and bricked, but I picked up a flush draw, and now I'm just going to try and realize my equity and bomb the pot. With 7 hands on the guy, we have no idea, like, what type of player type is doing this. But, like, this is almost always a fear bet, right? Like, this is very, very, very rarely a value bet, because the 2 doesn't change much. Like, yeah, it puts a backdoor flush draw out there, but, like, that backdoor flush draw doesn't come into play often enough to really, like, change that much. So, like, why is he scared all of a sudden? Is he scared because he's incredibly weak? Is he scared because he picked up equity and he's also incredibly weak? Like, is he scared because his hand's vulnerable? Like, this is a fishy bet. I still don't think I'm calling here, but, like, if we had, like, 500 hands on this guy and we could tell that he, we had some notes on him, like, there is some situations, like, with some history where I could call against this bet. But as played with these stats, I think there's really nothing we can do there. Now we're at the 400, 800 level. Still sitting on that 30K stack, so we're about 37 bigs. And we fold here with 10. So let's go back here. So we get slightly over a min raise, like a 2.05x raise here. And we get basically a min 3-bet from this guy. And you see a theme here. I mean, I had not been playing aggressively for more than a month or two at this point. So we have a lot of low hand history numbers. The ones we have a lot of hands on are from, like, several years ago, back when I was playing, because I took a nice hiatus. So, like, we got 24 hands on this guy, 17%. I mean, this is just not enough to read into. So I still don't like I don't like this fold. I think I mean, calling for 10% of our stack's not great, but tends to have some value beyond set mining. This 3-bet, like, looking at it now, really is not that strong. Back then I was probably thinking, oh man, this has got to be better than tens, right? Like, this is one of those sick min 3-bet, like, I've got a monster hands. But, like, now, like, having seen this a lot more, like, I just don't respect this 3-bet as much as I used to. We are at a position which sucks, but I like, there's just a lot of flops that we can navigate. And, of course, my post-flop play is a little bit more comfortable now. So playing tens out of position is a little bit easier for me now than it was back then. I don't think because we're out of position, I don't think I'm ever 4-betting here. I think that if I was on the button, well, I don't know. I guess so. Here's the interesting thing, right? Like, so on the button, I think I would be 4-betting here for value, but in the small blind, I think almost 4-bet bluffing with tens, like having tens be the bottom of your 4-bet bluffing range, isn't bad. Like, if I don't respect this 3-bet, I guess the question is, so if we let's say we 4-bet this to like 9K, right? We go to 9K here. What if we go to 9K, we've got 20K behind and he bombs it. Let's see, we've got, what's in the pot now? 17, 5, 62, 69, 7K in the pot. So if we go to 9, there's 16 in the pot. He's got to bet 57 to call, leaving him about 16 behind. So 21 to 16, 37. So we're gonna get 2.5 to 1 to call if he jams on us. I don't know. This is close. I think this is just a flat here. Like, the stack sizes are like, I think we would almost have to. Okay, so like if we're gonna 4-bet bluff, like we'd have to keep it thin. Otherwise, we're really getting odds to call. Like the chunkier we go, the more odds we have to call. So this would also have to be like a really thin 4-bet, like 8,500, 8,300. And at that point, like, we're giving him decent odds to call in position. But I don't think he's ever calling here. So I think if we're 4-bet bluffing, like, I would keep it thin, like maybe even 8K. Just keep it flat. But I think I still prefer a flat here. Like, we're deep enough that, like, the 10s have some value post-flop. They can win a hand even if we don't flop a set. And then, like, if I don't respect his bet and we're, like, on the button, then we can 4-bet easier because now the position, is just completely different. I mean, we've got the worst position of these 3 guys. So I don't like the fold here. I think I like a flat the best. And the guy just takes it down. It's an interesting spot. So here, I remember this hand. Oh, Rob. We get min-raised from early position. Again, very little stats on this guy, other than he seems to be somewhat tight. We flop top pair. Guy c-bets half. We call. Fine with that. He c-bets 2/3 here, and we just bomb it. Now, if I had to guess, at the time, I think that I was probably thinking that there were a lot of draws out there. And we have, we get some fold equity with the jam, plus we've got outs, right? Like, even if he's got a set here, like we've got 8 outs against a set, right? Which is, I mean, not a massive amount of equity, but we have outs no matter what. Like, the only hand we're drawing dead to, well, we're not completely drawing dead, but the only hand we're basically drawing dead to is 8-9, right? 8-9 is the one hand we're drawing dead to. Like, we could draw 9 and chop. But we block it. Like, the nice thing about the Jack-8 is we block 8-9. Because, 8-9 would c-bet a Jack-7-5 flop. It's double gutted. It turns. It would pick up equity and bet. Like, this definitely could be 8-9. But with the blocker in there, like, I guess we just figure we're taking a stab on it. The problem is, I guarantee you I wasn't even thinking at this point about what he had, right? Like, I just saw an opportunity to take an aggressive line and took it. Which in your early stages of your poker game is not horrible. Like, you need to learn how to be aggressive, and sometimes as you're experimenting with aggression, like, you just find spots that you can be aggressive and you just go for it, and that's a starting place, right? But, like, we got to think about, like, what is his early position raise? Like, he bets half on the flop. He increases to 2/3 on the turn. And, not only that, but, like, by betting this, he's basically committing half his stack to the pot now. Which means the odds that we have fold equity should be pretty thin, right? Like, he shouldn't be 2/3 bet folding here. Like, if he's got a bet folding range, he should be keeping it smaller because, again, same reason that we were talking about in the previous hand. Now he's getting 3-1 to call. Like there's just not that much he could fold. I mean, we could hope that he's folding a jack, like a dry jack, but, like, we've got a jack, so we kind of block jacks. Like, we're basically hoping that he's on a flush draw here. This is really what we're hoping for. So this is not a good spot to be aggressive. Like, if you want to call off one more street here, like, it's a little dicey, but, I could see calling one more street and evaluating the river. We still have 19K behind. Like, we still have 20 big blinds behind. If you think he's doing this really loose, you could do it. But we decide to rip. We do river it, and he had queens. So we were very fortunate there to take that down. So I think that's a spot where, hey, we played aggressive. We got lucky, but I don't like the play. In this spot, with these stack sizes, with the limited stats we have, I like this play in other situations, but like this particular situation, I think this is a little too reckless. So next hand we have ace king off. We're at the 612 level, 46 big blinds. We're in the small blind here. We're facing a raise from the cutoff. Again, not a lot of stats. Pretty aggressive for the stats we have. This is actually should be an orange tag. We 3x. We get called. The sizing here is okay, I guess. It might actually be a little bit thin. So here's a fun one. So we 3-bet with ace king. See, and this is where, like, I think out of position we want to be a little bit higher. Like, I almost think we'd probably go like 8,500 maybe here. Because we're out of position, we should be making him pay a little bit more. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. How do I turn that off? Okay. Didn't mean to show you guys. So obviously an awful flop for us. There definitely is a range advantage here. We both go check. When the turn's a 5, I mean, this is a card a lot of people will be tempted to bluff. Like, oh, well, we can bet this because he doesn't have a 6. But, like, how many 6s are in our 3-betting range here, right? From the small blind. Like, we shouldn't have any 6s here. So this looks like really, really dicey. Like, if we c-bet here, like, we're just not telling a good story. I mean, even a set is going to bet the flop. Like, there's no way we're checking a set on that flop. So, like, by betting the turn, like, we just rep nothing. So we should check here. We do. He checks behind. Now the river's an ace. Now that we've gone check twice, we feel pretty good that, like, he really doesn't have anything super strong here. Like, any straights, any two pair, like, anything strong would have bet at least on the turn. So we see bet. I'm fine with the sizing. We get a call. Very fortunate that he didn't force his range advantage, because he definitely could have bet flop, bet turn, and probably taken this pot down. Like, it just would have made things too dicey for us. But fortunately, he does not. We pick up another nice pot. Now we're at the 1K, 2K level. We are facing a 6 big blind shove under the gun, and we flat. Now, aggressive player, fairly balanced, but can be aggressive player. Like this. Now, these guys are both really short. Like, the thing that sucks about this is, like, first of all, it's under the gun. Now, okay, under the gun this short, like, this can be a wide range because people, like, see the big blind coming through. They don't want to blind down even more. So, like, I don't think we can normally treat this like a normal under the gun shove here. But this is kind of a scary spot because, like, if this guy jams, like, what are we doing, right? I think we need a plan. Now, he is loose, so maybe at the time the plan was I'm going to flat here, and I'm just going to call off any shove from this guy. Like, I can't call here and fold to any of these, right? This is the one guy we have to worry about. Like, are we calling here and snapping when he shoves because he's got really loose stats? He's got a 3-bet of, 14%. Again, another small sample size. And then if we're calling off, like, a jam from him, should we just be shoving here, right? And just eliminate the eliminate the play. Like, I think right now looking at this, like 33 big blinds, I think you just ISO rip this versus flatting here. Yeah, I think I like a shove better here. I mean, the thing is, like, this guy, like, when we shove here, I don't know that. I wonder if this guy would call with like 9s and 10s here. Like if we rip here, or even if we go to like 28, 29K, which is basically effectively an all-in for these guys. Like, and maybe that's better. Like maybe you go to like 30K here, which is effectively an all-in, but like it looks stronger, and maybe you can get this guy to fold a few hands that beat you. Definitely you get him to fold some of those flippy hands, you know, ace jack, ace 10, maybe ace queen. I don't know. It really comes down to like if you're gonna fold to a re-raise from this guy and you think that's profitable fold, then the flat's better. But I still think like we've only got one guy to get through. I think you just ISO here and come over the top. And he did happen to have jacks waked up with a hand. So another one of those interesting spots. But it's not like 30 big blinds ISOing with 8s is horrible. I think it was probably at the time I was probably playing a little bit scared. It was definitely a part. Scared was definitely in my range back then. So here we have Jack 10 at the 1.5K, 3K level. We defend the big blind. I'm fine with that. Second pair. And he only bets 1/4 pot. So I definitely love, like, second pair. We've got some showdown value. Against this week of a C-bet, we're definitely calling. We check the turn. I'm fine with this. I don't know. Like, I don't see much value to leading here. Simply because we just saw him go really, really small on the flop. So there's a decent chance if he does continue, he's going to go really small on the turn. He may also just check behind here. And so we want to realize our equity as cheap as possible. I'm not sure what we're saying when we lead. Like, we're telling a really weird story. We don't have any stats on this guy. So, like, I just feel like keeping a standard's fine. He does check behind. We river a 9. Like, again, we're super comfortable. Like, when he checks behind on the turn, like, we're not running into ace 10 or anything weird. Like, we're pretty confident we have the best hand. We bet for value. We get called. And he had top set. So the interesting thing is, I wonder if wow. Obviously, I hate the way he played it. Like, I don't understand. Like, okay, you have top set. You're not going to get a lot of value from a lot of hands. So maybe I justify the flop bet. But, like, if you can't check that turn. Like, I mean, he just let us get there on runner gut shot for basically 4K. And then he calls the river bet anyway. Like, if you're that worried about the river being bad, I don't know. I don't like how he played this at all. Yeah, and I have to wonder, like, if we bet the turn, like, is he just ripping us? Like, if we lead turn? Interesting. I think you have to bet the turn. Like basically, when you don't bet the turn, you're like, oh, crap, he's got ace 10 or he's got 10-9. And that's just way too specific. Like, if you're really worried about that, bet fold, right? Like, bet the turn, and if you get shoved, fold. And I don't even think that's a great play, but if that's what you're truly worried about, like, you still need a bet folding range. You can't just check there on the turn and let that get through. So we were fortunate there. That was interesting. I should probably add a note. Top set. Check behind. So, interesting spot there. So, we're cruising along. This is a Sunday major we're rocking. So, we got King Jack of Hearts here on the button. I think we should just... Well, okay, so no, hold on. So, this is an under the gun. That's not the base. So, this is an under gun raise. We flat on the button. And this is against that same guy. Interesting. So... I actually like the flat here, knowing what we just saw about this guy. Flop comes ace queen 7. We check behind. I'm fine with that. He checks a turn. I like a bet here. Like, now given the way he just played that hand, though, like there's definitely some aces in his range. And I'm sure at this time I didn't realize it was the same guy because I didn't take any notes on him. So probably didn't realize it. But normally I like this bet against the average player. Having seen how he played that one, I don't like this bet as much. I think we just check and try and realize our equity. But we bet. He calls. We river it. I like the thin bet for value here because, like, well, actually, no, I hate that. And now that I think about it, like, our hand's really, really disguised here, right? When we bet the turn, like, King Jack is so not in the range of hands that people are betting that turn with. I think we should bet much bigger here. And he had kings again. This guy's never going to play kings again. Interesting. Very, very interesting. So, like, I think, again, we get lucky against this guy. But I think based on our history with this guy, we just check the turn. And then when we get to the river, like, I think that we need to bet bigger on the river here because, I mean, he called a value bet with a 4-card straight, like, in the previous hand with top set. Like, he basically had a bluff catcher and he called. So, like, we definitely getting called for more than 1/3 pot here. Like, we could bet 2/3 pot here. We might even be able to shove and get him to hero. So, some missed value there for sure. Ace-9. We're at 6-12 now. We're getting a little thin. We're on 23 bigs to start the hand. Papa Shango, tighter player, 16-12-5. Defends in the big blind, and fold to LP steal is 10 out of 10. We're not technically from LP, but, like, again, tight player. So we have to respect his defense here a little bit. Interesting spot. We've got the backdoor flush draw. We've got middle pair. I don't mind the check here. We've got some showdown value. Against this type of player, we're definitely more likely to get to the river for cheap. So the turn is a 9, and now he leads. And now you're like, well, what what does he have here, right? Like, on one side, he's a tight player. So, like, is this just a straight bluff from a tight player? Does he have a weaker 9? Did he flop 8-10 and check to us out of position? Like, there's just so many things going on here. Like, I'm not too worried about 8-10 because even if he's got 8-10, we've got outs, right? Like, we've got a 1-9, 3 jacks, 3 sevens, and 3 aces. So we've got 10 outs. It's not great, but it's not terrible. That being said, in position here, like, we would float a fair amount of leads with weaker hands. Like, we need some value in with our floats too. And I feel like this is more bluff heavy because we've got the blocker. It's very unlikely he's got a 9 here. It's very unlikely he flopped 8-10 given his range and whatnot. So I think I like just a flat. But we do rip it. And he folds. Because, like, when someone leads that, like, let's see, what was it? It was a little less than half. But, like, when you lead and you just flat and it goes to the river, now he has to defend. And, like, I know there's some scary rivers with, like, an 8 or a 10. But, like, a 7's not a scary river for us. Like, even a jack is not that scary of a river. It's not the best river, but, it makes it less likely he's got one. So, like, and if he shoves the river on a jack and you feel like he's got it, like, you can still fold and get away from it. Like, I just think we just need to flat here. I think again, I got scared and decided to rip, and we missed an opportunity to maybe get a double barrel bluff out of him, or maybe value from a jack. Like, maybe the river's a deuce and he bets jack 10 or queen jack, or maybe even ace jack he's got here. So we lose some value there by ripping. But we're on 172K. We are cruising. We're 11 life. I think we were chip leader at this point and getting a little bit excited. And then reality hits. This hand, this hurt. I'll never forget this hand. So we raise here from under the gun with king queen suited. Fine with that. We get called from custom cage, who we have a lot of history with, and it's actually an orange tag, not a red. And the flop comes queen jack for us. So decent flop for us. He checks, we c bet, get called, and really, really good turn card for us, right? So now we've got top pair. We've got the flush draw. And he jams. And I'm fist pumping at this point, right? Because, like, okay, maybe he has fours. Maybe he has sixes. Like, we know he doesn't have jacks. But even if he's got a set, we've got outs. Like, we're just loving this. Like, he could have queen jack, but we block. Like, if he's got queen jack, he doesn't have a flush draw. Like, there's just, like, we're just not in a bad spot here. We're getting 2-1. Like, this is honestly, like, at worst case, we're like a 5-1 dog. Like, at worst case. So, like, we're feeling really, really good here. We call, and the river's a jack, and lo and behold, he had jack 9 with the flush draw for a 200K pot. Oh, this is so gross. But I don't think we played it wrong. I don't think there's anything we do wrong. I mean, his play, you know, it's super aggressive. Having played enough with him now, like with the stats I have him now, like I'm snapping off so fast now, having played with him a lot more. But back then, you know, didn't have as much of the history. I mean, he had, what, 4 outs? 5 outs? He had 5 outs on the river, basically. We were that close to having just a massive, massive stack. So that was rough. We get crippled. And that brings us to our bust hand. A little bit later, we jam 6s under the gun, 8 big blinds, and we ran into 7s. So we ended up cashing this. I think we finished like 26th for like, I don't know, 380. The 270K pot definitely wouldn't have gotten us to the final table, but it would have gotten us pretty close to the final table. So anyways, that's it for this hand history, and hopefully we will crush today and have a better one for you next week. Thanks.